Um, I'm still figuring out the connections between these three subjects, intuition, rapture, and persistence. So last week I talked about intuition, and I was talking about a Buddhist perspective, but also I've been reading this book about the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and I'm noticing how much I need the kind of logical, analytical brain, because I'm so operate on the other end of the scale of just like I see patterns, and I have these like moments. I'm not alone here. A lot of us operate like this. So I had this moment a couple of months ago of just like this set of intuition, rapture, and persistence, and it was like instantly clear to me how they connected together. But then I have to do the really difficult business of actually going back and kind of unpacking it all and unfolding it, for my own sake. So I'm still in that process, but tonight I can just stick with rapture. So rapture, I think I'll tell you where I'll start. And some of you, if you know me at all, and I've certainly given a talk here where there's a particular kind of archetype in the Buddhist tradition that I really respond to. It's a description, if you like, of an ideal Buddhist, if you like, and it comes from this quite obscure text, which I still have trouble finding in English. But I learnt about it through our teacher Sangharakshita, and I also like it because it's very short, and it goes. It's translated slightly differently, but whilst dwelling in the formless dhyanas, the bodhisattva is ablaze with external activity to benefit others. So, I'll just read it again. Whilst dwelling in the formless dhyanas, the bodhisattva is ablaze with external activity to benefit others. So the formless dhyana simply means profound, deep meditation. So it's a place of real stillness and peace. But it's also a place that is based on, or where what's been developed is a whole kind of sequence of positive mental and emotional states. So ethical purity and a clear conscience, and then joy, rapture, which I'll say more about, tranquility and bliss. And out of those, what emerges is a very profound and still meditation. So you got that. So you've got this inner experience, if you like. And then the effect of that is to unlock or unblock energy. And then you use that energy to help other people. So you engage with the world. So I really like it. It both has this, in a way, that the inner... The meditative absorption, you could also say it's emblematic of a whole way of life. It's a way of life that isn't that common in Western society, of a sort of contemplative, even monastic type life. But, it's also got this very active element that you engage in the world, you engage with people. And, as some of you, if you know me at all, you'll know I'm a little bit... I was going to say obsessed, but that might not be the right word. But the mythos of my life is that it's full of contradiction, but these contradictions can actually be resolved. Yeah, I see contradiction everywhere. This is my experience. I see it inside me. I see it in the world. And I felt so excited. When I came across this definition, it felt like, here is a resolution of contradiction. That you can both have this inner stillness and peace that I yearn for, and actually still actively engage with other people where they're at in the world. So that's the archetype, if you like. And then within that, so you have all these very positive mental states on the way to a profound peace, and rapture is one of them. So there's, in a sense, I've picked out rapture for a specific reason, but it's also, I've picked it out as one of a set of very positive mental events. So I mean it as a whole set of them, of like joy and bliss and serenity and tension release. and I mean it as I want to say something about it just on its own, as it were. And why rapture is because, in my experience, it's actually quite accessible, and it's worth looking out for, because you can actually experience it in sort of under certain conditions, but in everyday life, not only in meditation. But there's also the Sanskrit word is Piti. And the closest approximation we have in English is rapture, but you could also call it tension release. And so I find it's actually really helpful especially in meditation, that if I can tune into my body and I can kind of notice a bit of tension release, like literally just like as muscles relax a little bit. And I think it's just it's like a little gateway into some deeper meditative states, just to notice these tension release moments. And it's also very much associated with release of energy, if you like, the unlocking, as I said, or the unblocking of energy. So I thought I might just read you a description. So it comes from traditional sources, but it's from Sangharakshita. He put it into, it's not exactly his own words. I think he's being very faithful to the tradition, but I thought it's worth just saying what rapture actually is. And traditionally, there are these sort of different levels, if you like, of how it can be experienced in the body. So I'll just more or less read this out. Firstly, there's what's called the lesser thrill, but it's still quite significant. Like it is, it's probably something we all have experience of at some point or other. It's often characterised by, like, your hair standing up on end, for example. Or just some kind of, it's not momentary, but just it's a sort of thing that you can, I certainly experienced it when I've been listening to music, for example. But there's the next layer, if you like, is stronger but quicker. It's called momentary rapture, and it says to come just like a flash of lightning. And again, it's a bit of a hard one to notice because it's so quick. I suspect that actually quite a lot of us do experience this, but because it's literally like gone like this, it comes and goes. And so what you're mostly experience would be the sort of aftershock, if you like. The way it's described here is it's so overwhelming that you can bear to experience it only for an instant. It touches you, reduces you to ashes, as it were, and then it's gone. So, but I think I can recognise this. It's interesting just to try and think whether you've had these moments of elation like that. Because sometimes there are moments and it's almost too much to bear. I do recognise it. Then there's what's called flooding rapture, just as the tide comes in to fill a cave on a seashore. So rapture floods in upon you, especially, it says here, when you're meditating, and you feel almost carried away by it. And again, I think I definitely recognise this. And I'll come on to how we might experience these in a little bit, but the trick is not to kind of grasp after them. But it's certainly allowing this kind of upwelling of energy just to kind of course through your body is a very positive thing. And then there's all-pervading rapture, in which you feel like a balloon, so light, so buoyant, almost as if you were lifted up. And then lastly, there's what's called transporting rapture. Yeah? Some of you will know this one. I don't know in your own experience, but you've probably heard of it. That's what's commonly called levitation. Yeah. I've never experienced that. I kind of would like to, though. I've always thought, it'd be really great just to know what that feels like. To actually, because it sounds a bit, I don't know how it sounds, but it can sound a bit silly. Like people actually meditate and their physical body lifts off the ground, and there are plenty of accounts of this. And in fact, Sangharakshita in several places describes it being in India in the 1940s and 50s and meeting people. Either he met a Tibetan Lama who rather modestly said, I think I could do this, probably not right now, but give me 6 months of pretty good meditation, and I can experience this. It's not taken as some spiritual attainment in Buddhism. It's just like a byproduct of actually getting to very positive mental states. There was another story though where he just comes into some city on a train, and they're like, "Oh, can you help our friend? It's really serious." And apparently this friend just always levitates. As soon as he sat down to meditate or pray or whatever it was, he would just like lift off the ground. And he said, "It's so uncomfortable, I don't know what to do about it." And so Sangharakshita gave him some instruction, which was basically to develop more equanimity. So, it's definitely there in the records. These are fairly contemporary records as well. It's not just from something from thousands of years ago. So, rapture can be that. I guess what I take from all of those levels of rapture is that there's something, it's a coming together of energy. It does need to be sort of calmed or something, but it's it's a movement, a vertical movement of energy, and it can come about through meditation. The thing is, the really important aspect of this, kind of meditation in general, and just like getting into states of absorption, one of the things that we emphasize in Triratna that's very important, and it's not always brought out in the Buddhist tradition, is that there's two modes of cause and effect. Yes, so there's cause and effect which happens between opposites. You kind of oscillate. The most common example is between pleasure that we grasp after, and actually it ends in pain, and then we kind of oscillate between the two of them. But there's also what's called a augmentative series. In other words, one positive thing can lead to another. And we take this really seriously, because it's the whole basis for the path of growth and development, in a sense, that actually, it's why we call it the spiral, because you can't just simply go up a kind of vertical integrative process. It's just like it's a bit unrealistic and quick. There's more like you're working on the same things, but hopefully just at a bit of a more refined level. But this, the key thing, and it's been a very important question in my own mind, because in life, there are things that are pleasurable that we want more of. Yeah, but the Buddhist teaching is if you grasp after that, in the end, it will cause you more suffering, even though there will be some temporary, you will actually get some pleasure. Pleasure will actually be there. Actually, it will diminish. And it's because of the Sanskrit word is upadana. We grasp after it, and the nature of things are that they will, in the end, diminish or disappear. That's just like the basic law of existence. So, and yet, in this positive sequence, you get all of these positive mental states. Very pleasurable mental states, joy. How does it go in the spiral nidanas? You go joy, and then rapture, and then tranquility, and then happiness or bliss, and then really deep concentration. So my question was, well, what's the difference between that kind of pleasure and the kind of pleasure that causes suffering? This was a really big question for me. And the thing that was really helpful for me to come across this teaching and to realise that what it is, you can't actually grasp after pleasure, but what you can do is you work on the kind of preceding stage. So you actually work on the sort of foundation, and then it requires a little bit of trust and a little bit of patience, but actually these positive mental events and states do emerge. So out of, for example, simply by making a decision to meditate and actually getting on with meditation, and then with a little bit of awareness and a little bit of trust and patience, actually joy and rapture will arise. And they may only kind of be momentary flashes to start with, but they do actually arise, and you can kind of trust that. I've learned to trust it. And the trick is, of course, the mind is so clever and subtle that then you think, yeah, I really want this, but I'm just going to wait and be really patient. But actually, there's a subtle grasping that can happen, and that's why, that's why the path is actually quite difficult, because you're working. Our minds love to run on habits; they absolutely love it. I said this last week. So it does take a little bit of, a bit of trust, a bit of patience, but you can work with these positive augmentative series, so one thing can lead on to another. So, that's in meditation. What you can do, even if you're not, you're really trying not to grasp after something, what you can do is note when rapture or joy arises. You can note that. And I think the noting is really important because we're not habituated to note really positive emotions, unfortunately. Although we want pleasure, we're more familiar with the misery of life, to be honest. I know that can sound a bit shocking, but we're basically we want security, and we're really afraid of things, of instability and change. We really fear that, and that's just useful information. We don't need to give ourselves a hard time over that. That's just useful information about what it's like to be human. Yeah, but the thing is, if you just learn to notice when some of these positive mental events arise, they do actually just naturally just unfold. They do kind of grow a little bit, and you just become a little bit more used to them being there, and that's a good thing. Yeah. The other thing I do, so outside of meditation, I do quite a lot as well. Two really important things. I seek out just like experiences in nature, and you don't need to go to the bush. I mean, simply sitting in a park and looking up at the light coming through a tree is good enough. It doesn't need a great deal of, whatever, time and technology. Actually just doing something, sitting and really noticing, really taking things in. And this is a really simple thing to do, but actually it's become really important in my life. I actually take the time to do this. Really simple things, just like noticing beautiful natural environments, whether they're man-made, parks and so on, or get a bit further out and go into the forest, or just simply look up at the sky. So the other thing I do, though, is just like look out for really good human endeavour. Yeah. So the arts, especially. I've been reading 2 accounts recently, one from a psychologist who I really respect, and another from a neuroscientist, who both say any of the arts is good. Try and seek out good quality art. Any of the arts are good, but music is especially good. I thought, surprising to hear. But they reckon that music comes closest to a representation of the pattern of reality. They think this was just their musing. They're not giving this as a definitive answer, but really good music, they think, comes closest to like the nature of reality in some way. So anyway, I mean, this is I do this. I'll just say human endeavour. I don't just go to the arts. I mean, I can get really moved, inspired, and even get into rapture simply through great sporting endeavour as well. So I've got a whole list of really important sporting heroes. But basically, any really good human act that you can witness can actually just be open to the effect it has on you. Can actually have an incredibly positive effect on you, and you can just open to the rapture and the joy that it can produce in you. And again, it just get your mind used to that kind of experience. And this is important, I think, for at least 2 reasons. Yeah. So it's important because the job of growing yourself and developing means basically looking at what is most uncomfortable in our experience. Yeah, because we're really good at avoiding what's uncomfortable or difficult in our experience. So, it's good to know that there are some positive benefits along the way in this process. Actually, you can experience some really positive mental states along the way. But it's not easy work. And so I find with anything in life, even if it's really difficult, if you can find, A, if it's satisfying, you'll keep doing it. But B, if you can find some kind of enjoyment along the way, actually that's good, like healthy enjoyment along the way. You're more likely to carry on doing it. Yeah? So that's one thing. And the second thing is I seek out these things because I know that when you look around the world, it's very easy to be cynical. Yeah, we can find beauty, we can see it in other people, we can see it in nature, but we can also see all the mistakes that we're making, individually, collectively, as a species. We know that. We're hurtling towards something. We have no idea what the future's going to bring. Some people, some of my wisest friends, are very pessimistic. Yeah, very pessimistic about the future. This is going out on a limb. I'm not pessimistic, but then I'm not naively optimistic either. I think humans are incredibly adaptable. I often say to people, if you read a book about the history of, say, the last 1,000 years of European history, in there you will find one chapter which is like called plague. Yeah? The plague in the 1340s to 1450s in Europe wiped out a third of the population. That's a third of the entire population. Now it's just one chapter in a history book over that time. If that happened now, we would just think, oh my God, it's like the end of the apocalypse or something. I'm not saying that's going to happen now, but I'm just saying that humans are incredibly adaptable. And also, I think you can just choose which glasses you put on. There's still a lot of wonder and mystery in the world to be seen, actually. There's still a lot out there, and there's a lot of good in people. We're weird. Humans we're on this axis of just like good and evil are just constantly at play in us. Both alone and together. But you can choose which one you want to dwell on, basically. So don't be naive. This is me talking to myself. So I'm not naive and only seeing the goodness. But also, I don't think you need to be too pessimistic. There's a lot of beauty still out there. So anyway, that's pretty much about it. That's very quick, actually. But that's pretty much, I thought, what I wanted to say. And it's worth noting Rapture. It's a very, and these other kind of events and processes and experiences that you can have in life or in meditation. It's worth habituating yourself to them. The Buddhist tradition says that actually you can't grasp after them. Their main use is to get you into the state of mind, then you can just do some really good reflection. Yeah, that's the main purpose in Buddhism. Although they're enjoyable and you can kind of, for their own benefit, you can do that. But the main purpose from a Buddhist point of view is that then you can reflect on what's really important, be prepared to face your shadow, face what's really uncomfortable, reflect on as a Buddhist, for me, reflect on the Buddha's teachings. And then that's best done in the stillest state of mind you can. And then hopefully, some kind of resolving can take place where you can both have that kind of integrative, still centre and engage with other people. And it's the only language I have for spiritual attainment, if you like, is the language of resolving. Yeah, and I do see this going on in myself. Over 20 years of practice, I see some resolving. I can't put it on any kind of scale. I still make silly mistakes and all the rest of it, and still have bad days. But I can see some kind of resolving, and this partly through doing this work of paying attention to this. Not just to Rapture. I just kind of almost picked it out of a kind of list, but pay attention to the good, as well as engaging with people as you find them out in the world. So maybe that will do. I know it's a bit short, but maybe that will do for an evening. Thank you.